What's up everybody, Ronnie DiMaggio here, product specialist at BMW of Morristown. That's Austin behind the camera, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about this 2022 BMW X3. However, we're not going to be doing a walk around and overview like we frequently do with these cars. Instead, we're going to be going through every single button on the interior of this 2022 X3. So these modern cars, BMWs, have a lot of buttons in them. There are a lot of features and controls, and some of them are unlabeled or ambiguously labeled. So we know a lot of people have questions about what certain buttons in their cars do. So those questions will be answered pretty soon because we're going to press every single button in this car. So that is a lot. So if you're looking for a specific button that you are curious about what it does, we will have timestamps in the description and on the play bar, so you can skip to the part of the video that is relevant to your question about the button that you're wondering about. But with that said, let's hop in this X3, and we are in an X3 today, but the buttons will be pretty much the same from BMW model to BMW model. Most of the buttons are the same between each cars. The interiors are styled differently, but the buttons do the same things and are located in mostly the same places. So with that said, let's hop in the car and start pressing some buttons. All right, so here we are inside of the 2022 X3, our demo car for today. So we're going to start from left to right, and like we said, press every single button on the interior of this car. So we'll start up here in the top left part of the door panel. These ones are pretty straightforward. You have your lock button and your unlock button. You obviously have your door handle, which you can pull. Up here you have your memory seat, so you can go ahead and move your seat around, press the set button, and then the number 1 button, and that'll set your memory seat, or you can do set and number 2 if you want to set your position to number 2. If you want to take a look down a little bit at the controls here on the side of the door, this button, if we press it, locks out the rear windows, so rear passengers cannot open their windows. We have our rear window switches, so we can roll the windows up and down, and obviously our front window switches as well. Those are all one-touch automatic. This button here, if we press that, will fold in our rear view mirrors electronically, so you can see that those fold in and out by pressing this button. This little unmarked button, you can toggle it left and right to choose which mirror you're adjusting when you move around the mirror controls. So if you look up at the mirror there, and I move the mirror controls around, you can see that I'm moving the driver's side mirror, and then if I flip this switch over to the right, now we're moving the passenger side mirror. This button is what you use to actually move the mirrors around, so I can press left, right, up, down to move my mirrors around. And then finally, our last button over on the door panel is our tailgate button. So if we press this down, it's going to open up our rear tailgate. And now, if I hold the button in the opposite direction, it will close the tailgate right back up. So an important note about that button is you do have to hold it up to close the tailgate. You can't just like tap it up. You do have to hold it the entire time that the tailgate is moving up. So those are our door panel buttons. We can move down a little bit to the side of the seat. So if I move this button, the horizontal button, I can move my seat backward and forward, and then of course I can adjust the pitch of the seat. And then this circular button is for my lumbar support. If you have a car with adjustable bolsters, there will be another button in this area where you can adjust the bolster tightness. If you have a car with electronic thigh support, there will be another button on this button right here. You can press in and out to extend or bring in your thigh support. And then if you move a button up here on cars with multi-contour seats, you can adjust the pitch of the upper portion of the backrest. All right, so we have a couple more buttons on the left of the steering wheel here. These are for headlight controls. So this dial, when turned all the way to the left, headlights are off. Parking lights, automatic headlights, and then low beams. You can leave that in automatic mode. This little dial will adjust the brightness of your gauge cluster as well as your iDrive screen at night. And then these two buttons are for your parking lights. So if you park the car on a side street or something like that, you can press the parking light and it will leave the headlight and brake light on for that side of the car. So if you're parked on a street or something, you go out to dinner for a couple hours, you don't want to get sideswiped, you want your car to be more visible, you can press the parking light and have those headlights and brake lights on that side of the car stay on. So those are the headlight controls. Let's move into the steering wheel area. So on the left here, we have our turn signal stalk. Obviously press down for left turn signal, press up for right. You can, in BMWs, do a half press for a lane change. So if you want 1 or 3 blinks, depending on how you configure it in iDrive, You also have some buttons on the end of the turn signal stalk. BC stands for board computer. And as I press that, if you look in the gauge cluster, you can see that I'm cycling through different menus. I have different things that I can show there. And if I hold down the BC button while I'm in my odometer menu, that's actually a way to reset the trip odometer in your car. Down here is the automatic headlights, or automatic high beams. So if your headlights are in auto mode and you press down the A for automatic high beams, then your high beams will be in automatic mode, so they'll turn off when a car is approaching and turn back on when that car's passed. On the right stalk, these are your windshield wipers. So in their resting position as they are now, windshield wipers are off. One click up is auto, and then if you click up successively, you can go through your different intermittent modes. You have really fast, kind of a medium mode, and then back to auto. If you just press it from its resting position down once, it will just do one sweep of the windshield. And on the end of the windshield stalk, you have the rear wiper. So if we toggle this to on, you can see that the rear wiper will go on now, and it will go intermittently on one setting. And if we twist this little piece on the end and you look back at the rear wiper, it will spray washer fluid to clean off your rear wiper. An interesting thing about that is you can either twist it down or up. Either one works, which is kind of interesting. And then finally, on our turn signal stalk, you have the adjustment for the sensitivity of the automatic wipers. So if I have them on auto mode and I want to make them really sensitive, I can go all the way up to fast, or if I want them to be not so sensitive, I can turn that down all the way to slow. As for the steering wheel itself, we have all of our media controls over here on the right, volume up and down. We have a button here that will pull up our track list in the gauge cluster, or it will pull up a list of radio stations if you're listening to the radio rather than Bluetooth. These two buttons are for skipping tracks, so we can skip track backward and forward. This button down here will pull up our source list in the gauge cluster. Now, if you have a car with a heads-up display, what's happening here will actually happen in the heads-up display, but this particular car is not equipped with heads-up display, so we see it in the gauge cluster. This button is for your phone, so if you press this, it will pull up recent calls in the gauge cluster again. And if you press the voice control button, it will obviously bring up our voice assistant to which we can give commands. Another thing about the phone button, if you're getting an incoming call, you can press this to answer it, and if you are on a phone call, you can press the phone button to end the phone call. This button in the middle here, as well as allowing you to scroll through tracks and radio stations, you can actually press on it to select a track or a radio station that is showing up in that list. Down here in the center, we have our heated steering wheel, horn, obviously in the middle. Heated steering wheel you can activate and deactivate by pressing. And on the left, we have all of our cruise controls. So the button that says lim on it actually allows you to set a speed limiter. If we were moving here, it would allow us to set a speed limit to whatever we wanted to, so it wouldn't allow us to exceed that speed. This button activates the cruise control system. This button sets your speed. And if you interrupt the cruise control system for whatever reason, resume will resume the cruise control, and cancel will cancel your cruise control. This button allows you to adjust the incremental speed of your cruise control. So one light click up, just like that, will increase it in a 1 mile per hour increment, or a harder click all the way up will do a 5 mile per hour increment. So you can go up and down with your cruise control speed adjustment as well. Finally, for the steering wheel on the back, we have our paddle shifters. So this paddle on the right will upshift. It will have the transmission change up a gear. And this paddle on the left will downshift. It will have the transmission change down a gear. Fun fact about the paddle shifters, if you haven't watched our hidden features video, we talked about this in that video, but if you hold down the left paddle shifter, it'll activate sprint mode, so the car will jump down to its lowest possible gear for the quickest acceleration. And if you hold down the right shift paddle, it will go back into automatic mode for the transmission. So that's the steering wheel. Let's move into the center console. All right, so here we are in the center console of the X3. So we'll start by just mentioning that we aren't going to be going through the iDrive screen. We're going to focus on hard buttons only in this video. So we'll start with these two guys. These are your hazard lights, and this button, if you press it, it will bring up your menu for intelligent safety. So you have all on, individual, and then configure. But that is your intelligent safety menu button. From left to right, we have our climate controls. So we have our heated seats. We press that, and then you can keep pressing to toggle through the different levels indicated by the red lights. We have max front defroster. We have our rear defroster. We have the auto mode for the climate control, so you can toggle whether or not you want it to be manually controlled like this, or if you just want to leave it on auto, set it and forget it. We have our driver's side temperature adjustment up and down. We have our air path selector, so if you want the air to come out of the bottom area by the feet, the upper vents, or like the windshield vent, you can adjust where the air is coming out of, indicated by that little picture on the screen. This button adjusts your fan speed up and down, and then if you hold down the down button, it will turn the fans totally off. Same thing, we have the directional adjustment for the passenger side climate control. This button is for recirculation, so if you press that and look at the iDrive screen, it will bring up your menu for where you want, whether or not you want the air to be recirculated, automatic or fresh. This button pulls up our climate control menu, menu AC, pulls up the climate menu in the iDrive screen. Max AC will blast your AC at its maximum capability if you press that button, and then you have heated seats for the passenger side. Quick note about the heated seat buttons: if you have ventilated seats in your car, there will be a little fan picture above the heated seat, and when you press it, it'll pull up a menu that allows you to adjust whether or not you want heat or ventilation. Moving down to some radio controls, we have skip track, left and right, backwards and forwards. On the right here, we have our 8 preset buttons, so you can press these and set them to whatever you want. Just for the sake of pressing every single button, we went ahead and pressed all of those, but you have your 8 presets. If you want to set a preset, you can, in the iDrive screen, highlight a radio station, for example. Let's say we wanted to set the Beatles channel to number 1, highlight it, and then hold down on one of these buttons until it makes that noise, and you can set your preset. Over on the left here, we have our volume knob, so you can twist that to adjust your volume and press to mute. And then we have mode and band. So mode will bring up the menu to allow you to adjust through your different radio sources, and then band will just cycle through this menu. All right, so moving down to our center console area, we have our iDrive controller. So if you press any of these buttons around the iDrive controller: map, nav, home, media, communications, apps, back, and option, those will all allow you to jump to different shortcuts on the iDrive screen. So if you want to take a look up there, for example, if I press media, we go to media. If I press communications, we go to phone. Map brings us to the map. Nav brings us to destination input. Apps brings us to our app screen. And then back brings us back to the page that we were previously on. If we press the home button, it jumps us back to home. And then, of course, if you press the center of the iDrive controller, it will allow you to select radio station, phone number, whatever it is that you want to select. The option button I like to think of as like a right click. So if you're in a menu highlighting something, let's say, for example, we're in the navigation menu and we highlight a destination, you can press option and it gives you some options for what you want to do with that destination. You can add it to favorites, delete it, or ask for help or turn off the display. So option, think of it like a right click. Back down to our center console, we have our parking brake. So if we pull this up, activates our parking brake indicated by the red light. Push it down to deactivate. Auto H stands for auto hold. That allows you to take your foot off the brake when you're in drive and the car doesn't creep forward. This button is for our hill descent control, and if you look in the gauge cluster, as I press hill descent control, you can see it says hill descent deactivated or activated, and then if we press auto H as well and you look up here, it indicates that auto H is on. We have our 3 drive modes here, so you have sport mode, comfort, and eco. We have our engine start stop button, so you can press that to kill the engine, foot on the brake, press it again to start up the engine. This button is for our auto start stop, which disables the engine shutting off at a red light or at a stop. We have our parking sensor button. We can press that to pull up a map of our parking sensors or our rear view camera when we're not in reverse, or if you have a car option with the parking assistance package, this will pull up like your 3D camera and overhead. Finally, we have our traction control off button. Press this once to enter the limited traction mode, and if we hold that down all the way, you'll see it will say traction control inactive, DSC, dynamic stability control inactive, if we hold that button. This car has a blank switch right here, but if you were in a car that had the parking assistance package, this would be a little picture of a camera, which would pull up a panoramic view of the rear or front of the vehicle if your car was so equipped with that option. As for the shifter itself, we do have one button on the front here. That's how you put the car in park, by pressing that button. And there's kind of a hard to see button over here on the side that says unlock on it. That's how you unlock the shifter. So if I put my foot on the brake and move it around, the car won't actually go into gear. but if I unlock it and then move it around, the car will shift gears. All right, so moving on to our upper controls. Up here we have our interior lights, driver map light, double map light, and passenger side map light. This button is for our sunroof, so we can press that back to open the sunroof, push it forward to close, and then if we wanted to pop the sunroof, we would press this button here to vent, push it again to close. This is all one touch, by the way, so all it takes is one touch and the sunroof will go back automatically. Same thing to close it. Up here is our SOS button, and we said we were going to press every button, so we're going to press it. So if you press SOS, it will start an emergency call. If you look in the iDrive screen, we want to cancel that because we don't actually have an emergency, but that is your SOS button. And then really quickly, we can move over to the passenger side. There are a couple buttons over here, so we have lock and unlock for the passenger, and then a simple window switch automatic as well. So that's going to do it for the front seat of the X3. There are some buttons in the back, so let's hop back there and go over some of those. All right, so here we are in the back of the X3. So a couple buttons on the door. One is kind of hidden over here in the door jamb. This is your child lock, so press this up to basically deactivate the rear door handle so kids can't open the door, get out and into a street or while you're moving. Press that down to make the rear door handles functional again. Another button right here is, of course, your window switch to open and close the rear window. Now, if we want to hop inside the car, we can take a look at our climate controls, which are right down here in the center. So you have your automatic for the rear temperature adjustment up and down. You can turn off the climate control, and then you have the directional adjustment as well. Another button in the center console opens your cup holders. We told you we were pressing every button, so there you go. Another button in there. You do have kind of like sort of like a button right here to fold down your center seat, and then you have a similar button on the sides of each outboard seat to fold those down as well. One last one really quick is right here. This allows you to adjust the recline of the rear seats. So if I sit here, hold this down, and then use my body weight to press the seat back, you can recline it and then press it to allow it to come back up to its upright position. So that is the rear seat. Let's hop into the trunk because there are some buttons back there as well. All right, so around back, there is one button on the outside, of course. Press that to pop open your tailgate. As we move inside the trunk of the X3, not a ton of hard buttons. However, there are some on the backs of the headrest. You can press these to unlock the headrests for adjustment. To fold them up and down, you have one on all three headrests. There's also a button that some people might not know about over here tucked away. You can press this to unlock the cargo cover that snaps into place right here. So you have that button as well. And then if we move up to the kind of edge of the tailgate, you have a button to close the tailgate, and then you have a button to close and lock the tailgate. If you press that one, it will lock, and then if you press this one, it will start to fold down. So those are the buttons in the back of the X3, and that covers the entire car. So that's going to do it. We pressed every button, so let's head out front and wrap up. All right, so that is going to do it for this one. We pressed every single button inside of this 2022 X3. Hopefully, if you guys had any questions about what a button does in your car, that question was answered. If not, please drop a comment down below. We respond to all the comments. So if you drop a comment down below asking what a certain button does in a certain model, we'll go find that model. We'll press the button and we'll find out what it does and let you guys know. So thank you guys so much for watching, tuning into the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at BMW of Morristown, or give us a call 973-455-0700. Visit our website at the link in description, or visit us in person at 111 Ridgedale Ave. But that is going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.